Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Avengers Infinity War? Stick around and find out. What is the I just had it in my head a second ago. Now all I have in my head is the Justice League theme. Bom, 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 ba, bom, 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 ba, ba, bom, ba, something like that. Oh man. Oh man. I'm happy! I'm also Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, and this is my uncut review of Avengers Infinity War. If you've seen this movie already and you know my taste, you can maybe imagine why I'm happy. But anyway, the synopsis on IMDb for this movie, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, reads, the Avengers and their allies must be willing to sacrifice... Let me get my mic just a little bit closer here. The Avengers and their allies must be willing to sacrifice all in an attempt to defeat the powerful Thanos before his blitz of devastation and ruin puts an end to the universe. I think I have a little bit of popcorn. Yep, just a little bit of popcorn kernel still in my mouth. So I'll just cut to the chase and say that I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Maybe the Marvel movie I've enjoyed most since... well, I really enjoyed Black Panther. I think I enjoyed Black Panther more than this one, ultimately. And yet this one went some places that Black Panther didn't quite go to that I really wished it would have. But I think on the whole, I think I enjoyed Black Panther more than this one. But Captain America Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming, these are Marvel movies I really like. The first three, the three Iron Man movies, I found, going back to the original Avengers movie, that for me, it just doesn't hold up. It was a real novelty and so exciting to see all those characters together for the first time in that first Avengers movie that I saw it twice in the theater, loved it both times, and saw it again when I bought it, still really enjoyed it. And then something weird happened. I left it alone, came back to it after about a year and a half and watched it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so uninteresting and almost unwatchable for me now. So I think maybe there was just something, the story itself was not really strong. And so once the novelty was over of having all these characters cross over into the same movie, then the story wasn't working for me. I'm curious if that'll be the same thing, if that'll be the case with this movie, but I have reason to think that it won't be, and I'll get into that in just a second. Let me talk a little bit about the story, the script, the pacing, the tone. Man, there's so much going on in this movie. It's 2.5 hours long, and I think that was really good for it. It really allowed the movie to breathe, something I really wanted Justice League to do. This movie had time to breathe, and it used that time to breathe, to insert numerous character beats and emotional setups throughout the movie, which a number of past Marvel movies I feel like have not... it's not that they haven't taken the time to breathe, they just haven't used that breathing time to set up as many emotional moments that really connected with me, or set up character motivations that really connected with me. And I really felt like they did that so much more often in this movie than they have in many in the past. And the stakes for me were emotional, because I could tell which characters cared about who and what the stakes were for them. And something else contributed to that as well, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But this movie also definitely goes heavy. It goes heavy. I don't dare say any more than that, but it gets emotionally heavy. Bad stuff goes down significantly, and so I'm like, yay, because I really like... I know that a lot of people that enjoyed the Marvel movies have enjoyed them for their light nature. And don't get me wrong, the jokes are still there. They're still all over the place. And they're still very hit or miss for me. And for the theater that I was in as well, my theater was about half filled. So it was, it was a decent sized audience. And a number of the jokes just completely fell flat. I mean, like if you didn't speak English and you were just sitting in the theater and listening to the audience react, you would think there were far fewer jokes than were actually in the script, because a lot of the time the audience was just completely silent, not a chuckle or anything, and that's been my experience a number of times in Marvel movies, and the ones that actually make me laugh are even fewer and further between. But that said, I did chuckle and laugh more frequently in this movie than in a number of Marvel movies that I've seen, and so I really enjoyed that, and I was reminded of what some of these characters that I've liked in their movies and why I liked them. Doctor Strange, that was another Marvel movie that I remember liking, and so seeing him in the movie get so much screen time, and Spider-Man get so much screen time, I really enjoyed what they were given to do in this movie and how their characters were brought out of it. Maybe not so much Doctor Strange's character, but just like what he's capable of, all of his spells and stuff. What was I'll cross my fingers and try to get back to. No. I don't want to forget it. I didn't make as many notes, so I don't want to forget this now. This must have been just a monumental task to get all of, not just to, get all the actors together for this movie, but the production design. When you think about the makeup for all these different characters, the costume design for all these different characters throughout all these different movies, the Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Strange and, I guess Spider-Man's costume was new, but there's so much, Thor Ragnarok, there's so much that had to be carried over. I can only imagine the monumental task it was to get all those designs and have someone that could pull them effectively and replicate them, reproduce them accurately for this movie, sets and things like that. So it was just impressive to see that from just a production standpoint. Anyway, okay, back to the story. So yeah, still plenty of jokes. So you don't have to fear if you are like, I don't really like grim, heavy movies or whatever. You won't necessarily avoid that in this movie. It does get grim, it does get heavy, but there's still frequent jokes, and frequently they come after heavy moments. But sometimes they don't. There are some heavy moments that are not interrupted by jokes immediately following them. So that was really cool too. So anyway, I feel like as far as the tone of Marvel movies goes, when I reviewed Thor Ragnarok, I was like, okay, is this what Marvel movies are becoming? But after seeing Black Panther and now this one, I'm looking back and I'm saying, you know what? I don't think Thor Ragnarok was an evolution of Marvel saying we got to keep going with the joke thing because that's really working for us. What seems to be happening, this is just a speculation and a kind of a crazy impression, but is that they're being allowed to shake things up a bit in terms of their tone. And Thor Ragnarok was an example of shaking things up further in the direction of comedy, whereas Spider-Man Homecoming, Black Panther, and now this one would be examples of them shaking things up by injecting more character moments in and allowing things to be a little bit more emotionally heavy along with the jokes and stuff. And so I am thrilled to be able to say that this movie is making me be able. I think I can almost say I like Marvel movies again. If this pattern continues, I think I'll be able to say I like Marvel movies again, which is really neat for me to be able to say. The story itself is pretty basic, I think. There's a big bad who needs to collect these things to get ultimate power. Don't let him get those things. Fight him, don't let him do it. And that's just what the whole movie is. It's like he's going to go get this thing over here. He needs, these 5 stones, and they're all spread out in different places. So he's just he and his armies and his servants and stuff are all kind of split up, going to different places to acquire these stones. And there are various heroes to be found in those various stone locations. And so it's just a ton of fight scenes and things trying to get done with lots of explosions and special effects and stuff. And but I mean, I still really enjoyed it because they gave so many of these characters some neat beats, and also I think it was still just on a bigger scale, that novelty of the first Avengers movie of seeing, okay, now that the Marvel Universe has expanded so much, seeing all of them come together. And, for example, Black Panther, I really enjoyed the Black Panther movie. That character did not get near as much individual time. Wakanda, his country, got a bunch of screen time, and the characters of the supporting cast of the Black Panther movie, but I don't know that Black Panther got all that much more screen time than one of his supporting cast members did. It was very much kind of like an ensemble representing the Black Panther property in this movie, And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of Black Panther specifically doing his thing and stuff, but it was still great to see that, film that I really enjoyed getting a lot of kind of representation in the story here. It was just kind of neat to see all these characters Doctor Strange again coming doing his thing, and there was some great teamwork going on, especially in the that I noticed in the Doctor Strange fights, where he was using magic to kind of aid other heroes. I don't want to spoil it, but using magic to aid other heroes in doing what they do. It was just super cool. It reminded me of the first Avengers movie, where there was that one sequence where it was like the camera never really cut away, and it just panned through the action of all the Avengers working finally as a team all at once. It was near the end of the movie. This was like that, but I felt like even better. Probably a shorter span of time in the movie, but it was just so fast and furious and startling. There were so many cool things that they did with these short snippets of shots that they had. Like, one thing that stands out with Doctor Strange is it was a really short cut, but like he gets knocked back, and for just a moment, like if you were to slow it down, he's going back, and then he rights himself, and his hands go back behind him, and his cape, his cloak, kind of furls out, and it just has this cool shape around him, almost like kind of like a Batman spreading of the cape type moment, and then he gets ready for more action. The time it took me to describe that was so much longer than the actual moment itself, and yet it was, I could tell it was given thought. Like, this was a visual moment that the filmmaker wanted to give the audience when he really didn't have to. It was such a quick shot, he didn't have to put that much care and artistry into giving this cool visual moment to Doctor Strange, because it was there and gone, But I loved that. I loved that with all of the shortcuts and stuff like that, all the crazy stuff being packed into this movie, there was a lot of great visual style that was going on in the action and stuff. So that was really enjoyable. Let's see here. Tons of fight scene, tons of variety in the types of fight scenes. There's armies battling armies, and then there's smaller skirmishes that are still epic because of the massive powers involved that are going head to head. I enjoyed seeing lots of screen time for Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. They just totally rocked in this movie. There was still plenty of screen time. I feel like it was spread around pretty well. Maybe to me it just felt like Doctor Strange and Spider-Man were getting a lot of great screen time because I care about them as characters more than, say, the Guardians of the Galaxy, which were very present, had lots of screen time in the movie as well. Anyway, like I think I might have said already, I would have liked more Black Panther. I'm wondering if that will change as they are editing the second Avengers movie, which is going to be kind of a direct follow-up, I think, to this one. No spoilers or anything like that, but I mean, there's some significant game changers and fallout and stuff like that from this movie that I was looking ahead, I was like, what Marvel movies are coming up, and how are they going to deal with this? And it's just Ant-Man, which, who knows, might even take place before the events of this movie. I don't know if they'll say, have a little blurb at the beginning or what. And then Captain Marvel, which is going to take place in the 90s. It's not even going to be a present-day thing. And so then after that, the next Marvel movie is the next Avengers movie coming next summer. So anyway, I think I would guess that the filming is already done for that movie and it's in post-production. I wouldn't be surprised if, because of the success of Black Panther, that he gets a little bit more screen time as an individual character in the next movie, and I would really love that. I would have liked to have seen more Captain America. He was definitely present in the movie, definitely had cool moments and stuff like that. But I guess I just wanted more of him as a character, more dialogue from him, more about where he's coming from. And there were it was interesting how, if you saw Civil War, and some of the other movies as well, there are places where people were left in movies prior to this one, where I felt like there were some quick fixes that were made to bring them into this one that I felt a little bit like, really? That quickly these two characters are going to be okay with each other now? And it wasn't just that they were coming together because, hey, crap, the universe is going to die if we don't hang out as a team. It's really, in the script, they were more friendly with each other than I felt like they should be, maybe, given where they were at relationally the last time we saw them. There's just some... It was just kind of interesting. They just kind of, I think they could have just as easily not had them been as friendly with each other and brought out the fact that, hey, we got issues, we got to just work together for now. And there was some of that, but I think it would have made more sense in terms of character motivations and stuff to make that more the glue that brought everybody together. Anyway, also wanted Ant-Man in this movie. No Ant-Man whatsoever, so that was kind of a bummer. There was a weird, again, no spoilers, I'll talk about this vaguely. There was a weird manufactured subplot for Bruce Banner that came out of nowhere at the beginning of this movie, and it stole Hulk's thunder for most of the movie. As a result, I thought Hulk was horribly underused in this movie. That was a bummer. I have to imagine he will play a huge role in the next one, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Anyway, the cast really was all solid as usual. I don't think there's a lot of problems I usually have with the cast in these movies, but they're so often not given the chance to have quiet, emotional beats where the scene slows down and there's space between lines, and you can see them welling up with tears. There were some great moments where everyone just shuts up for a little bit, and we get to see some subtext in the performances, and that was so welcome to see some of these actors that are certainly able to bring their talents out, even in this big kind of crazy spectacle superhero movie. As far as the spectacle goes, let me talk about stunts and visuals just briefly by saying there is so much bang for your buck in this movie. Holy crap. I don't want to say that it necessarily has more action than any other superhero movie we've seen before. I think there's certainly been superhero movies that have action as frequently in the script as this one. But I think the nature of the movie, having so many different types of characters together, you get used to in a movie about Superman or even a movie about like the X-Men, you get used to seeing about 5 different power sets represented in a movie. Or with Superman, he's got kind of all of them in one. And so you kind of get used to seeing this predictable set of powers used repeatedly. But since there's such a wide variety of characters represented here, there are so many cool visual gags in the action that I just couldn't keep track. I was surprised, delighted so many times by the visual surprises in the action and stuff. So I really enjoyed that. Do I still have problems with the movie, with the story? I mean, sure I do. And I think if you've listened to my previous reviews about the Marvel movies, those same kinds of complaints, would tend to follow me into this movie, but that's really not what I'm left thinking about after the experience that I had. On the whole, I'm left with the positives from the experience, which is a really, really nice change of pace for me. I didn't feel like, because of the nature of the script and all they had to pack in and it being so action heavy and not really a complex plot at all, I don't think there was much room for any kind of like moral, philosophical, or spiritual themes to pop out. I usually like to look for those and highlight those and think about those and see if there's a good jumping off point for a worthwhile thought or conversation. I don't really feel like that was the case in this movie, except maybe, if a Marvel fan comes out of the movie and they're feeling like, wow, that was heavy. I'm not sure that I wanted that. Then maybe there's room for a conversation where you talk about how light can shine so much brighter in the midst of darkness, or or after the darkness has passed, or whatever. So there may be some kind of jumping off point there, but it's not at all that kind of movie. It's not. I don't think it's looking to say anything, and most audience members probably won't hear anything of significant value in the themes and stuff like that. Okay, so I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I would go back in time and say, Peter, dude, skip it, don't watch it in the theater, and just buy it. Reason being, you are definitely going to want to own this one. And after watching it, you're going to be itching to watch the follow-up Avengers movie. So if you wait and buy it, you'll have it in your collection, you won't spend any money in the theater, and you won't have to wait as long to get that itch scratched for the next Avengers movie, which comes out, I think, next May. So this one's rated PG-13 for intense sequences of sci-fi violence and action throughout, language, and some crude references. Man, I really enjoyed it. In fact, at this point, I'm going back and I'm like, you know what? Okay, now I think I enjoyed this movie enough that it makes me want to go back and finally purchase out of the bargain bins some of those Marvel movies that I did enjoy that haven't entered into my collection yet. Maybe watch them all again in order or something like that, the ones that I would still like anyway, and prep for next summer. Oh man, can't wait. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please consider supporting this channel by becoming a Spirit Blade Insider, which grants you access to exclusive monthly goodies and behind-the-scenes content. For more info, you can visit our About page over at spiritblade.com, where you'll also find... Has this mic been too close? I suppose it probably has been. I'm sorry about that if it's been kind of distorted. About page, spiritblade.com. If you want to support this channel, that would be great. Like, share, and subscribe, also a nice way to support. And finally, there's a ton more content and community over at christiangeekcentral.com, so including our weekly podcast. So I hope you'll join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.